true believers. Welcome to my channel, Mr. Miracle Comics. My name is Dave, and today I have 5 more undervalued comic books for us. So let's just take a moment to talk about what happened at San Diego Comic Con and the Marvel panel. So Marvel had an hour and a half panel where they stood up and they announced the Phase 4 lineup, right? And then one movie into Phase 5. Now, Phase 4 is only 2 years long, but there's 11 property or 10 properties that they announced for Phase 4, and then a Blade movie, which is in Phase 5. So nothing really surprised me, right? We knew the Eternals was coming. We'd already seen set photos from Black Widow. Shang-Chi has been, pretty much known to be a go for quite a while. Um, the Mandarin got announced as the villain because of the titles of the movies got announced and stuff. Nothing super surprising. I was a little surprised that the What If cartoon will have so many of the original actors doing the voice acting for their parts. I was a little surprised that they announced Blade already. I knew that they had kind of been fishing for a Blade story and they wanted to bring Blade back into the MCU. Kevin Feige had already talked about Blade. Again, when Kevin Feige mentions it, it's almost, we just got to wait around until something more materializes about it. So, a little surprised that they announced that Phase 5 one. Kind of just giving us a teaser. So there were some questions asked to Kevin Feige right after, and they were like, "Oh, you've got these 10 properties for Phase 4," and he's like, "Yeah, well, we've got these 11 properties." So unless he's just adding in Blade as well, even though Blade's a Phase 5 at that point, maybe he misspoke, or there's something else that hasn't been announced, right? So bigger con that's coming up is one that's called D23, which is Disney's con, and it happens on August 23rd, right? D23. And they're going to have another panel there. And Kevin Feige has repeatedly said that D23 is going to change the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So whether they're going to announce something new, like the movies that they announced at San Diego Comic Con, the Eternals we knew about, Black Widow we knew about, Shang-Chi we had known about, there was rumors about Blade, the What If cartoon I had known about. So there wasn't anything like a big, huge surprise, right? The television shows on the streaming service, they've all been known about for a while. Um, so he keeps saying these surprise, surprise, surprise. So again, don't think Disney wanted to have big, big reveals at somebody else's con. I think they're trying to save something for their own con. And when he's saying stuff like, yeah, it's going to change the MCU and there'll be some big surprise announcements, is there going to be another movie added to Phase 4? Possibly the third Spider-Man could be announced and added. I was a little surprised there was no Ant-Man announced. But Phase 5, maybe they're going to announce some more movies in Phase 5. Who knows what's going to happen at D23? It's kind of up in the air. I think they played a good game with San Diego Comic Con announcing all this stuff that we already kind of knew about, just confirming it for us on the big screen and giving us the titles and introducing us to some of the actors. And the actor for Shang-Chi, sorry, his name escapes me right now, but I'm actually kind of a fan of his. If you're a Canadian, you've definitely seen him on Kim's Convenience. It's a sitcom that comes up here in Canada. It's quite funny, and he's on that show, and he's quite good in it. So I'm very happy that he got the role of Shang-Chi. However, D23, I'm really still kind of like, ooh, man, what's going to happen? And that's like 3 weeks away. So they're trying to build something up at San Diego Comic Con for their own con. Like, why would you do all of your really big announcements at somebody else's con and, have nothing left for your own? I think we're going to see some big stuff out of D23 still, and it'll have a big effect on it. Comic book speculations, as it were. Anyway, let's get on to some comic books. That's enough of me rambling. Let's do our 5 undervalued for this week. Some pretty good picks. Let's take a look. I picked this one up just recently. I got it for $8, and it is a nice mint condition copy of Marvel Comics Presents number 72, which is the first appearance of Weapon X. So this book is from 1991. So we know there's mutants coming to the MCU. Now they've repeatedly said they don't know how they want to do that. It's going to be different from the Fox series. They want to differentiate that. It's going to be more comic likely, or comic true to the comics than Fox was doing. Um, but how are they going to? But Wolverine, right? Everybody's chomping at the bit for Wolverine, 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 and Marvel Comics knows this. So I would think that we are going to see Wolverine before we see a full X-Men movie. And they may do a solo Wolverine movie. I mean, that might be a smart play to do, right? And if that happens, there's a chance that they could use the Weapon X storyline and start with Weapon X and build into Wolverine before he joins the new X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men. So I think at $8 to have such an important character and point in Wolverine, who is arguably the most popular Marvel character, um, or at least one of the most popular Marvel characters of all time. Um, yeah, at $8 for mint condition copy, this is definitely an undervalued book. I've seen this book a few times. I just happened to grab it this time because I thought, that's a good pick for the undervalued segment on my YouTube channel. Definitely one to pick up. You could like $8. I think I overpaid a little bit. You could probably get this for $5 in near mint condition, or even less if you find it in a dollar bin somewhere. But I think it's a really important piece of Wolverine's history. It's essentially Wolverine's origin story, and definitely undervalued at $8 or less. All right, so from 1991, Marvel Comics presents number 72, first appearance of Weapon X. Look to pay between $8 or less for this book. Okay. So number 2. Now thinking about the movie lines with the Avengers, essentially the original Avengers team ending. A lot of the actors have left their roles. The characters have died in the movies now. Marvel Comics is going to look for a team to replace him. A lot of people are speculating on the Ultimates. So the Ultimates are a team that was made up of kind of Avengers, but they are like a government-sanctioned team. Like they're controlled by the government, and they work together to try and, just like the Avengers did, defeat bad guys and such and such. So a lot of people are speculating on the Ultimates, and everybody's like, oh, get Ultimates 1, which is the Ultimates' first appearance. Incorrect. Ultimates 1 is not the Ultimates' first appearance. Ultimates number 2 is. Alright, so this book, Ultimates number 2, it's from 2002, right, and has the first appearance of the Ultimates in it. If you want to get first appearances and stuff, this is a good book to buy. You can find this book for around, probably the $5 mark, $5 to $10 mark. Most people are going for the Ultimates 1. However, the Ultimates don't form a team in number 1. Tony Stark is going around and he's basically trying to gather up people and put the idea in people's head. So they don't form the Ultimates until this book. Now, so this is the book you want to get. Don't bother with Ultimates 1. It's probably not going to see that much increase in value. However, in terms of movie appearances, this Ultimates team is not the right team, right? There's members of this team which have died: Captain America, Tony Stark, Iron Man. It's not going to set up for this team appearance, this Ultimates version in the movies. So, I mean, if you want to collect it as a first appearance, it's still a cheap book to get. Grab up this one. It's a first appearance. A lot of people just want to get first appearance. It doesn't matter if they're dollar bin divers or not. But it should see, it should be worth more than that, being as it is a first team appearance, a first appearance of a team, and it should see a price spike because a lot of people are mistaking it, right? The Ultimates that the movies seem to be setting up is not this book, but it is our number 3 book. Well, sorry. So that's Ultimates Volume 1, number 2 from 2002, which has the first appearance of the team, the original Ultimates team. Okay, look to pay around $5 for that guy. But the real Ultimates team that the movies seem to be setting up more, their first appearance is here in the Avengers #0, right? So this is from 2015. So this is volume 6 of the Avengers, #0, right? So in here is the Ultimates team that seems to be more likely, if the MCU is going to pick the Ultimates as the next Avengers team, like esque team, this team is much more likely, right? So in this team, there is Captain Marvel, the Black Panther, Spectrum, who is Monica Rambeau. We've already seen her in the MCU now. There's another character called Blue Marvel. He is Adam Bender. Oh, sorry, Adam Basher. I'm trying to read my notes from the distance there. Adam, his character has been speculated on already. A lot of people really, really like the Blue Marvel. I like the Blue Marvel as a character. He is like, super powered, energy projecting, invulnerable, super strong guy. He's actually, but he's really, really good. And yeah, he joins the team here in this book as well. Like I said, this is from 2015, and you can still buy this book for less than $5, right? So this seems to me much more likely the team that's going to set up. There is another character in here called Ms. America. She is not just a female version of Captain America. Um, she is quite the character all on her own. We haven't seen any kind of inkling towards her in the MCU, but that doesn't mean that if they were to introduce this team, that they wouldn't want a few new characters like Blue Marvel and like Ms. America to join, right? So this book, the majority of this team has already been seen in the MCU. Now there are lots of variant covers. Here's another variant cover of this same issue. This is the Kirby Monster variant, right? You can also pay the same price as this, like just barely over what the cover price was originally. And yeah, I think it's a good first appearance. If you're getting it for around $5, which cover price on this book was $4, I think. Oh, sorry, $6, right? So you're getting it for cover price or less, and still, 3-4 years later. And it could end up being the Ultimates are the team that replaces the Avengers and grab it. So, again, another first team appearance, another first appearance that you can get for cheap. Like I said, there are several variant copies of this book, and that is The Avengers, Volume 6, #0 from 2015. Look to pay cover price or less for this book. All right. Now, the next book on our list, it's from the Bronze Age. It's from 1978, and it is Spider-Woman #2. All right, and the reason that we have an undervalued on this book is this is the first time we see the character Morgan Le Fay make an appearance in Marvel Comics. She has a first appearance in Atlas Comics from 1955. She was in a few issues and then essentially disappeared for until 1978. So here we see her first reappearance, right? And it's also, #2 in a Bronze Age run, and a minor first appearance of the Sword of Excalibur for the first time appearing in comic books. However, Morgan Le Fay, to me, she seems really ripe as a Doctor Strange character. She has a lot of magic tie-ins with Doctor Strange. She became much more developed character through the 80s, 90s, and all the way up into modern day comics right now. So this is basically her first Marvel appearance. You can still find this book in dollar bins. You can still find it cheap at little book conventions and stuff around the $3-4 range. You might go on eBay and find it for $5 or $6. But yeah, it's very undervalued considering that Morgan Le Fay is like I said, she's a very ripe character to put into a Doctor Strange movie. She has a lot of magic ties in the Marvel universe, right? So, bringing in another female style villain to fight Doctor Strange could very well end up being Morgan Le Fay. All right. So, The Spider Woman, number 2. From 1978, look to pay less than $5 for a copy of this book in very fine, near mint condition. Yeah, compared to number 1, this book sees a serious drop in price. All right, so last book on our list. This book has a little bit of controversy to it, but I've personally had this book in my collection for about 5 years, maybe a little longer. It was way off of anybody's radar way back then. And every once in a while, I've been checking and checking and checking, and it's just constantly risen, and I keep seeing it on more and more blogs, and more people are starting to pick up on it, and it's really starting to become a much more well-known book. And if you want a copy of this book, it falls in kind of those inappropriate comic book covers, and it's the cover of this book that gives it away. So that's the book. It is from 1973. It is not a superhero book. It is a book called Handsy, The Girl Who Loved the Swastika. And like I said, I have seen this book continually rise and get more notoriety. As you can see, this cover is the reason why, as well as the title. The title is quite startling, especially if you think it was published in 1973. So yeah, this book, I found this is a very nice copy of it. It could use a press. There's a few little dents, but I would definitely, after a press, this thing is going to grade close to a 9, if not in the 9s. However, like I said, this book falls in kind of that inappropriate category, like same as like Betty and Me 16 or all those books. When I bought this book, I paid less than $30 for it. I've seen it steadily rise. You're going to pay closer to $100 now, and it's starting to get really more and more known. So if you are going to buy a copy of this book, inappropriate covers, like it's just, the cover is beautifully drawn, right? It is by a gentleman, it should be right on here, Al Hartley. So he did a lot of Archie comics, right? And he became a born-again Christian and made a deal with the publisher of Archie Comics in order to start up Spire Christian Comics, right? So this is a Spire Christian Comics. And then he made a deal so that he could actually have Archie in a few of the Spire Christian Comics publications. Now, this is really the only Spire Christian comic that has any real value to it. But it's important to note, if you are going to buy a copy of this book, if you take a look in the corner, there is 39 cents price on it, okay? Let me see that. That's important, because this is the 1973 printing. A few years later, in 1976, they reprinted this because it had sold out, and there were still people looking for it. So Spire reprinted it, but it has a 49-cent price tag, right? So it's definitely better to pick up the 39-cent one. It was a lower print run, and just being older, being a first print, as you know, it's more desirable. This book is in no way promoting any kind of Nazi behavior. It's actually quite the opposite, where this young girl was a Nazi, and she was into it when she was living in Germany in the World War, just as World War II was breaking out, and she ends up coming to America, living in America, and seeing the freedom, and then realizing, it's a much better idea to, be a Christian and be a good person than be a Nazi and everybody hating you all the time and stuff. So she turns over and she becomes a born-again Christian and gives up all the Nazi hate and everything like that, and turns to Jesus. And it's quite it's a turnaround story. We've seen it all before. Nazi turned Christian, and no, I'm kidding. It's quite a different story, that's for sure. And it's actually based on a true story, so it's a little bit of an of a biography. I can't remember the woman who originally wrote the story. However, like I said, have seen this book steadily rise. Now you're going to look to pay about $100 for a book in this kind of condition, especially the 39-cent one. I don't see it ever dropping, right? This book isn't getting on a rise because of a movie appearance or a special character or anything like that. It's getting a rise because of its notoriety and because of its infamy in a lot of ways, right? And because of that amazingly drawn cover, even though it depicts quite evil subject matter, you have to give it up for that illustration. It's beautiful. Right? You can see Hitler in the back there. Hitler, right? So that has a lot going for it. Cover appearances of Hitler, being in the Bronze Age, being a very low print run because it was a Spire Christian comic. It has a lower paper quality, so it's harder to get in good condition. It was much less collectible because it's not a Marvel or a DC comic. So yeah, I would most likely that this book is going to continue to see a rise just based on what it is. So yeah, that is from 1973. It is Handsy, The Girl Who Loved the Swastika, and I think it's, yeah, look for the 39-cent copy, right? That's the first printing, 39-center. Awesome. So that has been 5 undervalued books for this week. I hope you find some books in there that you can dig out of dollar bins. I hope my little talk at the beginning has got you excited for D23 as it has for me. I'm quite curious of what might happen on that panel. Hopefully we'll get some very good surprises. You know, let's hear something about the Fantastic Four or the X-Men or Namor would be nice. However, gotta wait the 3 weeks to see what's going to happen. So this has been Mr. Miracle Comics. My name is Dave, and I'll see you next video.